Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening. I'm Gwen Richardson, and I'm your host for tonight for Black Authors Matter TV. And I hope you've had a great week so far, this January 17th, and the year is moving right along. We are going to have an amazing show for you again tonight, and my co-host, Dr. Rhonda Lawson, will be on later. So before we bring on our first guest, I have some housekeeping notes. The National Black Book Festival author registration or vendor registration started January 1st, and we have a lot of people signing up early. So if you want to be a part of this year's event, which is October 26th through the 28th, just signing up early secures your spot at the cheapest price, and you won't have to worry about it selling out and all that. So also the Jerry Pinckney Children's Book Awards the process has begun. So if you want to submit your children's book for that, feel free to do so at jerrypinckneybookawards.com. Our first guest is in the waiting room. I do want to let you all know we have 2 books to give away tonight. Well, actually 3, but these 2 are the 2 books. So we'll do that after this first interview. And then also our third guest for tonight, her book, which is a hardcover, is already out. Our publisher sent her book, so we're going to be giving that away at the end of her interview. Now, our first guest is, and if you know about the show, if you watched it, we interview bookstore owners from time to time because we want to make people aware of the bookstores in their area, and we want to make sure our independent bookstores have support. So tonight we have as a guest Willa Robinson, and her bookstore is in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's called Willa's Books and Vinyl, which I thought that was really interesting that she not only sells books, but she sells vinyl as well. And I didn't know which one of her devices she was going to utilize. So I see her there, and I'm assuming that's her husband. So she's going to come on for the interview. And I think the mic is on and everything. We see you.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we hear you. So the other device, we can disconnect that one.
Okay.
So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Tell us a little bit about your bookstore and when you opened and why you called it Willa's Books and Vinyl.
Well, I started selling books in 96, something like that. But I didn't get into a brick and mortar store until 2007. In 2007, a friend of mine and I opened a bookstore, just a bookstore. She had African art. She's a art collector, and I was the book person. Well, she decided that she did not want to continue in that, and so I ended up 4 years in the store by myself, and I had to close it because I couldn't maintain it, and wasn't getting enough customers. Closed it in 2012, and I opened up again in 2015. And then I had to move out of the building where I was. And so now I'm at 5547 Truth Avenue. And in between all of that, vinyl came. When you open a bookstore, people bring things to sell you. And during that time in 2007, people were just getting rid of their vinyl because they just want a few dollars. And so they came. And that's why I'm into vinyl. But I didn't change the name until probably 4 or 5 years ago, I changed it because I sold a lot of vinyl.
Yeah, vinyl has made a comeback.
Yes, it is. In fact, vinyl is what keeps me going sometimes.
Interesting. You know, a lot of the bookstores sell things other than books, which helps sustain their business. I
This is
know
true.
we had my husband and I had a brick and mortar store from 2000 to 2010. So we sold books. We also sold, at the time we opened the bookstore, the VHS tapes that was what people were using.
Mhm.
Then the DVD came out, so we were selling DVDs, and we added Greek things for the Divine Nine sororities and fraternities. We had some apparel like the Negro League and that. I don't even know if they even are still making those. We had We had some art. And
Mhm.
when we closed the bookstore, we didn't sell that much art, but we had gotten some custom framed art that we had in the bookstore to sell.
Mhm.
But we didn't sell. I don't know if we sold any of it, but we spent a lot of money on the custom made. Well, when we built our new house, we just put that art in our house.
Oh.
Because we had already invested so much in getting, we had, Annie Lee, we had get some Annie Lee prints. I'm trying to think of the other, a lot of our stuff is Annie Lee, but we have a couple of other artists. So I understand the need to couple books with
Yes.
something.
Yes. In fact, when I started this bookstore, a friend of mine said, "You're gonna have to have more than books in your store." So
Okay.
that's where I am now. I got more. I got all kinds of. I have memorabilia. I have
Okay.
African mud cloth.
Okay. Yeah, we did some of that too.
And
Mhm.
but
Like the figurines, and
yeah.
when Annie Lee had her figurines, where she had turned her art into figurines.
Oh, okay.
It was a whole line of that, and there was a company called Sandy USA that was licensed to sell all of her stuff, and she had all kinds of paraphernalia. Then that went away. Things come and go. That's one thing about the space too. Books are consistent in that there's always some new books coming out.
This is true, but
But
go ahead.
well, no, go ahead.
Now, I was saying that I am a used and rare bookstore. I do
Oh,
sell new books. Like now, I just got Harry in, the book about Prince Harry. So
okay.
I try to keep.
Spare. Spare.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And I got um, Michelle Obama's latest book in, but my specialty is used in rare African American books.
Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
we haven't had I don't know if we've had a bookstore that was selling used books on before. We've had probably 15 bookstores on over the course of the show. So our
Mhm.
show started in July of 2020 during
Mhm.
COVID.
Okay.
And then every Tuesday we have the show. And I don't think we've had a used book,
Yeah.
a store that sold used books. And a lot of times what people will do, they people who buy books like I do, sometimes you just want to kind of clear out,
Mhm.
your collection to make room for the new books. And some books you've already read, or you're probably not going to read again. You don't necessarily want
Right.
to keep them, but you want to do something with them.
Mhm. But my
So,
used books are like anything on African American uh, history,
okay.
because it's a historical bookstore in that like I just got through doing a session on Martin Luther King, and I did his recording of the drum major.
Okay.
And so there are all kinds of even used books. You cannot, there are people coming in looking for certain books
Right.
because
And they're out of print.
Yeah, and you cannot go to Barnes and Noble and get what I have in my store.
Right. Well, because right now I wanted to see if we had any comments from our, because normally the show is interactive and we'll have comments from the audience or questions from the audience. And Rhonda normally serves that function of checking all that, but she's late coming on today. So I get to do double duty and do both things. So we have our regular viewers are on watching the show, and they're all saying good evening and
Good
hi.
evening.
Ladies. So now when something you said about people can't get your things at Barnes and Nobles. That's one thing one challenge that Black bookstores have is that a book is a book is a book, meaning a lot of times people will shop based on convenience or whatever's closer to you or price. And with Amazon, cutting the price on some, really just
all of that,
then you have to determine another way to make money, or you can't stay in business. There's a lot of people, they just don't understand. I know when we had our store, and we still have the same website and phone number, because what we did, we pivoted our business to marketing for authors over a period of time, because that's what the authors wanted. And so we just got out of the retail business altogether as far as selling books was concerned. But after we closed the store in 2010, some, people would call and say and ask for something. Do you have whatever? And I said, well, we closed the bookstore. It's no longer open. And then they said, really? I said, yeah, we closed 3 years ago or 4 years ago, or whatever it was. And they said, oh, wow. Why was that? And I said, well, it's hard to stay open when people only come to your store every 3 or 4 years. And it was a dig, but people, if you don't know we closed, that means you haven't been since we closed.
Right.
And you can't stay open like that.
Right. It is heartbreaking to have to close your store because you're not getting any traffic. And like I at the time, say a few years ago, I was the only Black bookstore in the city. Okay. And even that did not help, because like you said, Amazon, but then you have these different discount bookstores like Sam's Club and all that.
Right. Sam's Club. Costco sells books.
Costco and all, they get the book for half price. Well, you can't sell it no cheaper than that. And so it's I tell everybody that I retired from the Postal Service after 31 years. So I don't depend on my bookstore for my living.
Okay.
That's the one reason that I can stay in business. Is in that it can pay the rent.
Okay.
It can pay the rent. But this year probably is the first year, this past year, is that I made a profit in the business. And I've been in business a long time.
So we have a question from one of our regular viewers. Her name is Gwendolyn Hayes. And she asked, how do you build your collection? And do you have other genres besides historical books?
I have all kinds of, I have, like the romance books.
Okay.
I have people sometimes donate books to me, but most of the time I have to buy books. They don't just give you books.
Okay, you buy them from people who bring them in. Okay.
And then there is Amazon, and there is Ingram when I need to buy new books. Because
Okay.
during the time of the George Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
there was an overwhelming amount of people that wanted books on police brutality or racism and all that sort of kind of stuff. So I had to buy those books.
Okay.
Sometime I'd buy books. Somebody come in and they want 25 books of certain, so I had to buy those books.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing still is historical books that you cannot ordinarily find.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, when all this stuff happened with George Floyd and we had several bookstores on, and I told them that I had seen something like this before, at least once before, where there's like a resurgence and book buying, and you get a lot of white people interested in learning about topics on racism
Mhm.
or Black history. But
Right.
I told them at the time when it happened, and I have a recording because it was on this show. I said, it's happened before, it never lasts. So you have to take advantage of it while it's happening. It normally lasts maybe 6 months, and then it'll start to wane, and then
Mhm.
it'll go back to the way it was. And
Mhm.
that's just what happens. You know,
Can
it's
I?
hard. The interest, that heightened interest where it's just, everybody's scrambling,
Mhm.
that's a blip. It's an aberration. It's not,
Right. Right.
you can't stay in business expecting that to be the norm.
No. No. And like you said, it lasted for a few months.
Mm-hmm.
I got orders through email. I got orders
Mm-hmm.
from everywhere, and then, bam, down it went.
Yeah, all the bookstores that were on during that time said the same thing. And
Mhm.
since they've all said the same thing, that there
Mhm.
was this resurgence, it was a blip, and then it died. Now, was your store open when Tyler Perry, did you ever carry any of the Tyler Perry stage plays that were on DVD or VHS?
I never
You never.
really carried. I never carried DVDs or
Okay.
CRs or any of that. I never
Okay.
any of that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was an extended blip, but it was still, when he was independent, when he first got on the scene with his putting his stage plays on DVD, he did it as an independent
Mhm.
entrepreneur, and he was only distributing them through the Black bookstores or
Okay.
Black specialty stores.
Mhm.
And the price point and the margins were great. And that
Oh.
lasted for 4 years or so, 4 or 5
Mm.
years.
Mm.
And then he got the deal with Walmart, and the DVDs went in the Walmart stores.
Oh.
And that it ended immediately, like it went from 100 to 0 overnight.
Oh my goodness.
But it lasted for 4 or 5 years.
I did not get into that particular part of it because the part of business also is advertising, that you have this and that you have that and all that. So a lot of that goes into what you carry.
Well, that's true. We started off online, so our strength was always online. So
Mhm.
that was how we advertised and communicated with our customers. And
Okay.
even we were online first, then we opened the brick and mortar.
Okay.
So, and then we had it for 10 years and we closed it. But we still have an office, but we don't do retail.
Okay.
We don't sell from our location. So I do have some, let me see if I have any more questions. Oh, where are you located? Lydia asked where you're located in Kansas City, Missouri, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's where she's located. And let me see if I have any other questions, because I have a question I want to ask about the vinyl that you sell. I had a huge vinyl collection when I'm a great lover of music, but only real music and real music. So I had a huge vinyl collection. I ended up giving it to my stepson because once my turntable broke and I started gravitating to
CD.
to other things, cassette and then CD and then digital. I said I'm not gonna need these. So and he could use them, but I had about 300 albums. So I had, everybody who was good from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. That was the 90s is when the music started to go in a different direction. I say that. But your vinyl, did you sell used vinyl or new or both?
No, I sell used vinyl.
Okay. And so what are your mainstays? Like which do you serve, like old school R&B, jazz?
Jazz is my mainstay.
Okay. Okay.
Blues,
Which artists?
Miles Davis, Coltrane, Mingus, just all of those older ones. Like nobody hardly comes in for Basie or Ellington,
Okay.
but they're still looking for Coltrane. They're still looking for Mingus. They're still looking for, what is the guy's Monk? They're still looking for Monk.
Thelonious
Monk.
Uh-huh.
And they hardly ever ask for Gillespie. But
okay. But they would have been on 78s, wouldn't they? It would still be vinyl. But were they on a regular album?
They're on 33.
The 33. Okay.
That's where all kinds of all the like Smokey Robinson, Temptations, all those are people are still looking for those. People are still looking for the guy that did Superfly.
Oh, Curtis Mayfield.
And just different things. I have some rock. People still come in looking for the Beatles every now and then.
Okay.
I do have a small section for rock, but my deal is jazz and blues, like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Jimmy Reed, not Muddy Waters, Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, all of these. These are what people come in looking for.
Really? That's interesting.
So I have a huge jazz collection. I have a huge soul selection. Some gospel, a lot of old gospel.
A lot of old gospel. Okay. I'm familiar with the old gospel too. I didn't have a lot of gospel out, but I'm a PK, so that was what we listened to growing up. My parents, although we were allowed to listen to secular, so we could listen to secular music, but my parents, they always listened to gospel only. And I spent a lot of time in church, so we knew who all the gospel artists were. And my brother who's passed, well, my parents have both passed, but my brother was he was a musician and a lover of gospel music. So one of his favorites was James Cleveland. So he would always buy.
Oh, I got tons of him.
He loved James Cleveland. James Cleveland wrote a lot of songs.
Yes, he did.
All his stuff was original. He had a really great career. And there were a lot of gospel artists that did really well during that time.
Could I ask you a question?
Sure.
How did you choose me to be on your show?
Oh, okay. Well, I have people who ask that. They normally don't ask on the show, but it's fine. One of our missions is to stay on top and stay abreast of book news, bookstore news, anything having to do with African American literature, new books being released. And there was an article about you and your store that popped up I get Google alerts every day on bookstores, books, anything having to do with African American literature. And we're always looking for interesting guests to be on the show. And we, in addition to authors, we like to have bookstores because they go hand in hand. And so we like to make people aware of independent bookstores they can support.
Okay.
So it was an article. I can't tell you where I saw it because I don't have it in front of me right now. But it was a news article. It might have been a local news article in your local paper, maybe. And it
Probably
on my Google alerts.
Yeah.
And it was recent. So
okay.
Fairly recent, in the last 2-3 weeks or something like that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And that was how we became aware of you in your store. And that's why we invited you to be on the show.
Well, I am glad that you found me. I didn't know I was out there like that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So so besides, when people come in, do people bring you vinyl to sell you that you resell?
Yeah.
Okay, so people are selling their vinyl like they're selling used books.
Yeah.
They're
not so much doing that now because people are becoming aware that they can go to different places and sell their vinyl. Where I might be very picky about what I buy, they can go and sell their vinyl to different ones. And so not so much walking out if somebody want to sell their collection, I buy the collection.
Oh, okay.
So I've been trying to get a collection for a year now, and I think it has fallen through. I can't make it.
Oh, you can't find it. What's the artist?
Well, it's when I say a collection, it's this guy is dealing with, he has all of these old artists, the ones that I just named.
Oh, okay. So it's like a group of vinyl that you buy.
It's a group of vinyl. Okay. And so I think it fell through. I don't think we're gonna make the connection. Oh, so that's disappointing, but it happens.
Yeah, well, maybe somebody else will show up and with some vinyl. If I still had mine, I would, give you an inventory. I had the best stuff. I mean, I had some all the old school R&B, all of it. Anything that was good, anything that was good. There's even some of the artists that weren't like super well known, but they just had great music. One of them I heard on the radio recently. I was actually in an Uber, and the guy was playing jazz on the radio, which isn't common, because most of the time they'll be playing rap, which I really is not my. I don't like.
I know it's not my.
But a song by Joe Sample came on.
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, I haven't heard that song in so many years. He was good. He used to have a singer that sang with him. What was her name? She sang that song Street Life.
Oh, okay. Okay. And I got tons of the Crusaders Street
Life. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of her name right now. It's escaping me. But her voice was so unique. And she had a deep voice. But the fact that you had vinyl also caught my eye just because I'm such a music lover. But you don't really hear. I don't listen to the radio myself. I hadn't listened to a regular radio station in years. I have my my stations on Pandora. Some people use Spotify, but I just started with Pandora. That's where I stick, and I have about 100 different stations on there with different artists based on what mood I'm in or what I want to listen to. So, and I love all kinds of music. I'm not really into country, but there's a couple of country artists I like though. Bonnie Raitt, I like some of her stuff.
But Bonnie Raitt is not country.
Well, she's in the country category.
Is she? Because I mean, I like Bonnie Raitt, but I thought she played with John Lee Hooker. She loved to play with the blues guys.
No, I didn't know anything about it other than some of her songs I really like.
Yeah.
The most popular one is I Can't Make You Love Me If You Don't.
I love that song.
Yeah,
I love that song.
That's a great song. Well, we're at the end of our time. So
But
if you can let people, what did you want to say before we go?
I wanted to say, as we say, Black authors matter. And I wanted to say some to the authors out there. We need more books for young Black boys to read. We don't have enough books for young Black boys that are interesting to
Okay.
them. So we
Okay.
need. Okay.
And I've heard that before. And
Okay.
so, you know, numerous times from parents. Sometimes because I'm an author too, and I go out with my books, and I hear that a lot from parents of boys. So that's something for those of you all authors out there. I have a book for boys in my mind. I don't have it written yet out, but I do have a book for boys in my mind. So, but thank you, Willa, for being on, and continued success with your books and vinyl store.
Okay, and if anybody wants to know where I am, it's at 5547 Truth, Kansas City, Missouri. If you want my phone number, somebody can give it to you.
Okay. All right. Well, we hope people will watch this and support you.
Thank you very much for having me. It is a joy and a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. So that was Willa Robinson, and she's in Kansas City, Missouri. So if you're in the area, please support her store. So our next guest is someone I haven't seen in several years. I want to say 10 years. He'll correct me if I'm wrong. But Rickey Teems II, he came to one of our book festivals, but it was when we were still in hotels. And we haven't been in a hotel. This will be our 11th year out of a hotel. But Rickey was everywhere. He was all over the place with his books. And so we wanted to have him on the show so people can find out what he's doing now. So Rickey, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much for having me, Gwen. I appreciate being here. Happy 2023, by the way.
Yeah. I was saying, I think it's been about 10 years since I last saw you. When you were at the festival with the Kings of Literature.
Yep. It's probably been at least. It sounds crazy because like now, everything is pretty much like BC before COVID and AC after COVID. Like we measure everything like by the year 2020. And
You're right.
like
it's
like
true.
The truth, right?
It's true. It's a reference, like before, that was before COVID. I mean, that's just
Like and otherwise everything is just a blur, especially at this age, right? Like so it probably had to have been about like 2013, 2014 or so, like the last time I was out there.
Yes. In there. So I know I don't know if you're still publishing books. I haven't seen a new book from you, but I know you were doing a lot of writing, and now you just taking your writing in a different direction. So first, give people a idea about when you were writing books back in like 2010-ish in there, what you were doing and what your goals were, and then just tell us where you've been headed. And I know you're doing films now, so just give us like an update.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So at the time, around the time we met, I was an independent author who just knew I was about to make Oprah's book club like any day now. And fortunately, I didn't make Oprah's, but fortunately, a lot of book clubs, yours included, a lot of other ones from California to New York. I got to shout out the book clubs. Were so supportive and so dedicated. Like that's really the thing, it a lot of times in our community, what's the old saying, if you want to hide something from Black people, put it in a book. And I think that can be used and misinterpreted because there are a lot of readers out there and a lot of people that support literature. And so at the time I was an independent author and, you know, traveling, being blessed because of the support of various book clubs and readers and events and festivals. And then my book managed to land in the hands of a couple of filmmakers who gave me an opportunity, kind of took me under their wing. Some of you guys may know the movie This Christmas, or True to the Game. You know, great writer, director, Preston Whitmore, kind of took me under his wing, taught me the ins and outs of script writing, came out with my book, The Happiness of the Healing of Love in Literature. And he actually took me under his wing to film like a great, insane trailer for that book, which kind of helped promote it a lot. And then like after a while, people just kept telling me like, man, your writing is really good. Like you really need to get into film. You really need to get into film. So I started dabbling a little bit. I did a short film called 2 Minutes to Kill, which got accepted into some festivals and actually won best dark comedy in a few of them, best black comedy in a few. Then I put together a web series that we released. It's very small, you know, independent production, and was just motivated to keep going. And so around 2019, put together a script for a film called You're Hired. It's about a young Black and young Caucasian co-workers who are both up for a job opportunity. And they kind of let their co-workers and they kind of let social media get in their ear and get them to thinking like, oh, the Black guy is going to get it because of equal opportunity. Oh, the white guy is going to get it because of white privilege. So they're forced to set each other up. They think setting each other up is the best way to the promotion. And ended up putting that film together. Had a great cast and a great crew. It's out now on Amazon, Google, Apple. But it's not easy. For those that think, the one thing I hope everybody walks away remembering is film is not as easy as it looks. Like I hear so many people like, oh, I'm gonna make a movie. Oh, I'm gonna adapt my book into a movie. I sincerely pray you do. Just know it's probably gonna take 3 to 4 times as much work as you're estimating.
And money too.
And money too. And the right talent as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not as easy of a process for those that aren't aware. It can be done, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody from doing it. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah, I think a lot of authors probably would be better to see if they can get their book options than to try to create a movie themselves, because that takes a whole nother level of a lot of different things.
I think, you know, it's one thing to have like the confidence, you know, like, oh, I can do it. Yeah, that's great. Nobody's doubting whether you can do it or not. But I think people kind of grossly underestimate how much information filmmakers get from film school or from being on, you know, sets, kind of learning as like a production assistant or whatever. And I was very fortunate to not only, you know, work with Preston in the capacity of, you know, he's a very seasoned, award-winning filmmaker, but my co-writer, producer on You're Hired, had also, you know, he had gone to film school. It's what he had studied for, and you know, what he's in the business to do. So I was able to kind of garner a wealth of knowledge from him that I might not have gotten otherwise. And there, you know, there's a lot of things that you can look up, and Gwen, you know this, people are much more likely to come up to you and be like, hey, tell me everything I need to know about how to write a book, rather than just going and Googling the information themselves or going and researching themselves. And making a film is just not one of those things you can do over a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Like, it's a lot of work, a lot of knowledge that's needed to go into it. But I agree with you.
Moving parts on filmmaking too. It's with a book, you can do that yourself in terms of writing the book. Now, you shouldn't try to do your cover unless you are a very established and talented artist. And even then, you know, it's really just better to hire somebody who that's what they do. And you should never be your own editor.
Right. I was going to say, rule number one, neither you
Never.
nor cousin Reg can be the editor on the book. Like, put some money. If you're gonna pay for anything, pay
Right,
for that editor.
right. And not, you're right, not your cousin Ray, or
Right.
your cousin that, teaches 3rd grade English, or even 11th grade English. Editing a book is a completely different thing from teaching an English class. And so,
Absolutely.
but what I did, people were asking me. Now, I don't know if I had published any books last time I saw you. I have 14 books. And so when I saw you, I don't think I had any, or maybe if I did, I only had one.
I think you may have like released your first one or something like that.
Yeah, I think I had my first one. But my 3rd or 4th book, I forget which order, people kept asking me. So I wrote a book about writing a book.
Okay.
So one of my
I remember
books
you released that. Yep.
It's called Write It Right, WRITE, RIGHT, the guide to self-publishing your best book. So people ask me, I just refer them to my book, because I'm not gonna,
there you go.
I just can't, give a person, you can't tell somebody how to write a book in 15 minutes or whatever. It's a process.
It's a big process. And I think I think at least for me, it was very critical to do the research and understand that process as well. Because even if you sit there, even if you had the time to sit there and give somebody all the information that you know about writing a book in one conversation, it doesn't change the fact that, their topic, their writing style, their designated audience, all those things may be completely different than what you're able to coach them on. And so at least knowing the parameters of writing a book, having it edited, how to get it out there to the public, the next steps after that, I feel like an individual that's really serious about writing will want to do their homework on it first, right? And I think that's what separates a lot of the writers who make it versus a lot of those that don't reach their goals.
That's true. And I found a lot of times when people ask, they really want you to do it for them.
Really.
They really are asking you to really write their book. And then,
right.
So then that's ghostwriting, or, and that's expensive.
It's time consuming, right?
Like, yes, because time is money. So
if you're being paid by somebody, then at that point you're employed by them, which is a totally different story. I think you and I have been around long enough to know that, over the course of my writing, I think I released my first book in maybe 2008 or so. And from that time through regression and healing of love and laughter, I can't even count how many conversations, I had trying to help people. People come up to you at your book signing, not purchase a book, but ask everything they need about their book, and just totally hold up the line and your whole little business process to ask you questions about their book. And sometimes I do, and then those same individuals won't even turn around and say thank you afterwards. And that happened countless times. And to this day, I still will give at least people the bare minimum of what I know to help them. But I've really kind of learned, maturity has helped me learn that, look, if you really are serious about this, you'll do the research. And if you're not, then you're just wasting both of our time.
Right. That's true. Because it's not going to be that the first time you do it is not smooth.
Right.
Because you don't know what you don't know. It's a lot that you don't know. And it's a process. So you have to go through the process to learn it. And I had some advantages in that I had been a writer for basically my whole life. I had been a reader for my whole life. And so I at least knew what a book entailed,
Right.
And English was always my strength. Any class I had in college or high school, whatever, if I had to write a paper, it was an automatic A. It's just my strength has always been writing. So at least I had that as the foundation, and knowing what's in a book. But some people just approach it and they don't even really read books. When they tell me they don't read, okay, it's hard for me to help you because you really don't know the elements of a book. So how can you write a book if you don't know the elements? That means really you need to go to school. That's a whole nother,
Yeah,
conversation.
which is a whole nother chapter of life.
Right, right, right. But they do it. But just know that what happened to you is happening across America because the same thing happens to me. I even have people sometimes when I'm out with my books because I go out sometimes. Normally I'm with a group of people. We have a group here. We go out to malls sometimes with our books because the strength in numbers. But I'll have people come up and say, this is a book I want you to write. A stranger, a perfect stranger.
Right.
This is the book I think you need to write. And I'm like, okay, if you think it's a great idea, you write it. I've already got my list of books that I'm working on. But and that's happened to be more than once.
It's the funniest thing because everybody has a story that they want you to take care of, right? Like, I got a story for you. It's like, okay, like I have at least 3 stories that I've been trying to get to for the last 2 years.
Right,
like,
right.
So like maybe yours is better than those. I don't know. We can have a conversation, but I think at the end of the day, once you've kind of grown to a point, you just realize like your time and credibility, there's you can't get that back. And I remember sometimes young authors or up and coming authors would want endorsements, for their book. And you look at the book and you're just kind of like I would really like to support you, but I can't sign my name or I can't say go buy the homie's book, and the editing is terrible, the story doesn't make any sense. And I appreciate and celebrate the fact that you took that leap of faith and did it. And a lot of people just talk about goals and the fact that they got their book completed. However, what I quickly learned doing film is like a completed project doesn't mean a good project. And a good project is the difference between people buying your next work or not. Because if you go around supporting everybody else's stuff and it's half done or it's not edited or it's not finished properly or like misstructured, then eventually they're going to start associating your name with lower caliber, lower quality projects, and then it's going to be hard to sell your own work after a while.
That's true. Your reputation is something that you can't get back once it's ruined, or once it's something, it's a lot of negativity attached to it. It's
right.
difficult to get it back positive. It's very hard. That's why you have to be real careful about just who you associate with even.
Absolutely.
And I always tell people operate with integrity. Now for me, when people ask me to endorse their book or whatever, this is my answer. And it's a good answer, and it's my honest answer. I literally know thousands of authors. Literally, I can't do that for everybody. So
right.
I just say no to everybody.
Hey, that's straightforward. Keeps it
because
simple,
I
keeps it
can't.
consistent.
Yeah. Now I help authors. I support this show. We've had we're going on having 500 guests on this show in 2.5 years.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. We're approaching 500 guests. So we have promoted a lot of authors' work and helped sell books. And we just believe in literature. And we also believe that we can't wait on somebody else to do this work for us or depend on somebody else, because you can't depend on somebody else. They tend to gravitate to the 3 or 4 bestsellers, and that thank God there are bestsellers, but it's thousands of people doing books that are excellent. It's people
Absolutely.
writing excellent work, and they need to get the exposure too. So that's what our mission is to expose the public to all of these people writing books that weren't writing them when we first started our store in the year 2000. Well, our website, we started in 1998. That's how long we've been around. We started our website December of 1998. And then we opened the store in February of 2000. And we had that for 10 years. And we've been doing the festival. This is our 16th year doing the National Black Book Festival.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah,
Y'all
16
roots are deep. Y'all roots are deep. Yeah, I
yeah.
remember, because even now it seems like forever ago, but I remember when I started writing, and kind of learning the ropes, and you really only had like a handful of Black authors because, when I started, when I was still researching and things, because there was still like a lot of, I don't know, skepticism about independent authors.
Mhm.
It was still
Yeah.
really just kind of
New.
coming around. And yeah,
Mhm.
and I get it because, Amazon, I think, was really one of the, game changers for indie authors to be able to, get books completed. So you had like, some of the GOATs around that time, like, RIP, Eric Jerome Dickey was still, because he had that big publishing deal. You had like the Rashondas and the Victorias who were around, and obviously a lot of others. I can't name everybody,
Mhm.
that had the publishing deals and were very prominent. And then you had what my old friend referred to as the Chitlin circuit, which was all of us independent authors who were, kind of trying to get our way, not necessarily get a publishing deal, but trying to get that same level of exposure or acclaim because, we felt our works were just as good as anybody else's. We just didn't have that platform yet. But I also understand from like a reader's and a buyer's perspective when, it's so saturated and you have, books that aren't edited properly or books that, stories and structure is all over the place. It's kind of hard to pick up, and want to support unknown authors at that point. And you're, because that's your hard-earned money. And so you're more likely to go to those that are published because you can at least trust, if nothing else, that you're not going to get a bunch of grammatical and spelling errors in the book.
Yeah,
And
at least it would have been copy edited. Now, sometimes
exactly,
the storyline is still not the greatest, but
where
at
it needs
least
to be. Agreed.
it's been copy edited, so you're not reading a bunch of
Absolutely.
partial sentences or verb subject agreement and those kinds of things. So
Yeah,
you're
it
right.
was for me, it was the book clubs and the avid readers and the book reviewers that really, kind of help keep gas in my tank because, there's always times when you're like, this book isn't doing as well as I thought it was. Like, is this really meant to be? What happened to that call from Oprah? I was supposed to have been blown up by now.
I remember when everybody wanted to get on Oprah. Everybody
Oprah's book club.
Oprah's book club was
it
it.
was like the lottery. Oprah's book club was the lottery.
It
like
was
you get on there, yeah.
And she only picked a handful of Black people.
Yeah, it wasn't as many. Yeah, it was.
I can probably count them on two hands, maybe one.
Right.
She didn't, I remember just a couple of, I think Terry McMillan was one. Wasn't she in Oprah's book club?
She made one, and and shout out Terry. She's a big name as well too. So
she is, but
it wasn't like she was taking a risk.
I think she was getting started then, though. Wasn't she just getting? Well, I don't know. Maybe she had already done a couple of books. I can't remember
Yeah, I think she. See, again, now we're going back to pre-COVID. Right. Like everything is blurry pre-COVID. But yeah, that's why I say shout out to you. Shout out to you. Shout out to the book, the book clubs, because at the end of the day, you guys really, help people live their dreams and sometimes don't even realize it. It's not just a matter of like, oh, I wrote a book. It's I wrote a book and I got to hop on my first, book club meeting and go discuss it, or I got to be at a festival and do a signing. And, those things are like invaluable confidence builders for so many individuals like myself to, keep moving forward.
Yeah, so tell us, we only have a few minutes left, so just tell us what you're planning, like what's this year, AC after COVID, what are your plans? What are your plans for this year and next year? Where are you headed with your work?
So this year, I'm not one of those new year, new me people. Like my grind continues year after year after year. So couple big projects in the work. The first I'll say that I'm extremely happy about is this book here. I don't know if you guys can see it.
It's
But
kind of blurry. At first I could see, but now it's like it's blurred
I
out.
don't know. Oh, there we
There,
go. Is
okay,
that
there
better?
you go. Yes.
So this is a children's book for grades 4 through 7 called My Favorite Things. And I'm
Okay.
extremely happy because it's not my book. It says Teems on the cover, but it's actually my 11-year-old daughter's first book. So I
Oh,
took, we sat, obviously being, literature at heart, writing books, reading is not just something I was doing to make money, but something that's a part of me. And so I was very happy to get her acclimated to that world. And she wrote her first book. We just released it. It's about a young fourth grader trying to navigate life and friends when she's discovers some magical powers and every alien galaxy trying to destroy Earth to get it. And she just wants to be a normal little fourth grader, fifth grader, but has to defend the world every single day. So that's out now on Amazon. My Favorite Things by Teems. And as far as myself, I'm actually in the middle of finishing a TV pilot treatment. I wrote a TV pilot that was a finalist for the CineQuest Screenwriting Awards and Screencraft TV Pilot Awards. So now I'm taking the next step and developing a full treatment for that. And I also had a great opportunity for those of you that saw the Netflix show Dahmer. The young man that played Scarver in prison in the final episode that actually kills Dahmer, him and I wrote a script in actually 2020, and we're kind of fleshing it out now. We are finishing up some of the treatment and packaging for it, and we're going to be shopping that for a feature film as well. So those are the main things on the window. Of course, you always have other projects that you want to get to, and I have a young adult novel that I'd like to get to. I have a chapter book for kids I'd like to get to. But what I've learned is, business can be the nemesis of creativity. It's always fun to create and write, but at some point you got to push your projects through to the next level. So that's where my mind is going to be at for most of 2023.
Okay. Well, Rickey, we're so excited to have you on the show to get an update on what you're doing, and glad to see you're still writing. And congrats to your daughter for publishing her first book. And we'll have to talk about getting her on the show.
Absolutely.
To help her promote her book.
Look forward to it. It's a great book. She's got her first 4 ratings up on Amazon already, so she's excited. They're doing a book signing for her at her old elementary school. So yeah, we're pushing through. I'm actually up here at her tennis practice now, so we're just doing, we're expecting big blessings in 2023, Gwen, and so being on here was a big start to that.
Okay, well, great. And actually next week we have 11-year-old children's author on. So
Awesome.
we've had children on the show before that have written books. So anyway, thank you so much for being a guest. Congratulations. Have a great year, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds great, Gwen. Can't wait. Same blessings to you and to everybody tuning in, listening. Thank you all.
Okay, have a great evening.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, so we are right at the top of our next interview, but we want to give away these books. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the trivia for the books, and then we'll see who won them at the end of this interview coming up. So here's one of the books. It's a advanced reading copy. I have to hold it back here. Here's this microphone. I don't know if people can see it. Oh, there you go. It's by Cynthia Manick. It's a poetry book. It's called No Sweet Without Brine. And the trivia for this book is, name the title of the author's other book. Cynthia Manick, she has one other book, and name the title of it. Okay. And the next book is a book by music executive Matthew Knowles. It's called Racism from the Eyes of a Child. It's by Matthew Knowles. I don't know why I can see this microphone is blocking some of my So you can see the book. Okay. And the trivia for this book is the author is the father of the author's name is Matthew Knowles. It's at the bottom. I hope you can see it. There you go. There you go. It's tilted. The author is the father of which female R&B artist? So the first two people to get the answers to those questions will be on the book will be on the way to you. So we're going to, after this interview with Shannon Gibney, we are going to give away the books. And Shannon is the author of this book called The Girl I Am, Was, and Never Will Be. This is her book here. And she has a very interesting topic. And we're excited to have her on Black Authors Matter TV. So welcome, Shannon Gibney.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Now, this book is your memoir, is that correct?
Yes, it's a memoir, but it's a very strange memoir because there's sort of two main focuses of the book. The first is me, Shannon Gibney, growing up in 1985 with my white adoptive family in Ann Arbor, Michigan, what really happened. And then the other timeline is Aaron Powers, which was my name at birth, growing up with my white biological mother in Utica, New York in 1985. And then there is a strange wormhole that connects the two timelines, and the Aaron and Shannon see each other at different points. I also include pictures of myself and family members, letters from my birth mother, all kinds of adoption documents, and then there's also little micro essays in there on the absurdities of the adoptee experience. So it's kind of a collage text, and hopefully it all sort of
comes together.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the subject is a speculative memoir, and it's about transracial adoption. And it's a topic that doesn't really get a lot of attention.
Yes.
But is something that I think is very emotional, and for the people involved, it can be, well, for the child, I'm thinking it can be somewhat confusing, but I don't know. And you can speak to that from your vantage point as an adoptee. So just so the audience will know about your story, you were, I'm just surmising because I haven't read all. I think I just read like this.
Yes.
But you were, your birth mother was white.
Yes.
But your father was not.
Yeah, my father was African American. Yep,
Okay.
and I was adopted in 1975 to a white family in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Yep.
Oh, okay. So you were raised in a white family for how long? For the 10 years from 75 to 85? Is that what happened? Or your whole life?
Yeah, my whole life. Yep. I was adopted at 5 months and was raised. Yep. My whole life. Yep.
Okay. So when did you first become aware, or if you can remember when you first became, how old you were, when you first became aware that you were biracial?
I mean, I think I knew that I was the only Black person in the family. I mean, from a pretty young age, you know, people always think that children don't know what's going on or they don't pick up on social cues, but children know, you know, so I knew that, you know, people would look at me in a certain way, right, in a questioning way when my family and I would go out, you know, and it would also just, you know, phenotypically just how we look, right? Like I could see that I looked different than the rest of my family. I didn't necessarily know what biracial was. I didn't necessarily know what Black meant either. So that was a large part of my own journey of, you know, my identity.
So when did you know you were adopted? Did they tell you?
From the beginning. Yep. Everybody told me, and it was, like I said, it was obvious because the rest of my family was white. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And did you have siblings. Once you were adopted,
Mhm.
were there more siblings added to the family?
Nope, I'm the only one. So I have an older brother who's 2 years older than me, and he is biological to my adoptive parents. And then I have a younger brother who's 1 year younger than me, and he's also biological to my adoptive parents.
Okay. And did your adopted parents, did they talk to you about why they wanted to adopt at that particular time?
Um, yeah, I think that they were, like probably most people who adopt, like they were having trouble conceiving for a second child. And then so they, were like, well, we'll adopt a child of any race, of any background. And so I became available, and they were like, okay, yeah, this is perfect. And then while they were actually in the process of adopting me, my mom got pregnant with my little brother, which happens more often than you would think. Yeah.
No, I actually know two couples that thought they couldn't get pregnant. They adopted and then they got pregnant.
Yes,
Because
it's
the pressure's off. It's something
exactly.
about the pressure of trying to, I think you get too, you're stiff, or you're like frozen, you're just too nervous. And once the pressure's off, you relax, and that's when you can get pregnant.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, it's actually common. So did you mentioned something about your upbringing being just like some bizarre moments. That's probably not the word that you use, but it made me think of bizarre. So can you,
Yeah.
and we don't want to do too many spoilers for the book because we want people to read the book,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just give us a couple of examples of situations where you were confused or
Yeah.
disappointed, it had having identity challenges.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think, for all kids, middle school can be a really difficult time because, of course, people are developing, they're changing, and then a lot of times they don't have a lot of self-confidence. So they take it out on, other kids and all these things. But I think being mixed, and then on top of it being a transracial adoptee, just made it like all the harder for me. And so definitely at that point, um, I felt I felt like the Black kids in middle school were just sort of like, okay, like what's going on with you? Like you don't fit in. You don't like. Do you think you're white? Do you think what? Like, because you're not, um, and then I didn't know anything about sort of colorism, right? Like I think also too that was also part of the thing, was sort of like, oh, she's light skinned, so she thinks she's better than us, and I was just like, I'm just trying to do my algebra, and so yeah, so that for a while there, I mean, I didn't really want to be Black because of that. Um, and yeah, I think yeah, just the um being hyper visible, in a white family, so that, it's like you go to the grocery store and people can see like, oh, you don't look like the rest of your family, right? And then they somehow feel it's appropriate. I would say white and Black people, all people, people from many different backgrounds, to come up to you or your parents and ask you like, oh, that's your sister? How's it your sister? And it's not appropriate for them to do that, but they somehow feel like they can do that.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's
I mean,
a lot,
I can see thinking it, but
doing it, yeah.
Going up to the person and saying something, that's that's very bold and really rude.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yep. And then I also had people, just being mixed, just come up to me like, what are you? One of my favorites. Yeah. So, I mean, just totally inappropriate, like whatever. But that, for some reason, when people can't place you in a particular category, I think there's certain people that it's like that they have like a psychological come apart. Like they can't handle it. They have to figure out what category you're in.
Yeah, and in America, even though we're all Americans, but America is very racially identifiable. I mean, you have to make a decision almost and I don't know what happens in other countries. I've visited other countries, but only as a tourist. I've never lived in other countries. Now, have you been abroad?
Yes, I
And,
have.
and what parts of the world?
So I did study abroad in college in Bolivia for a semester, and then I actually spent a year in West Africa, in my like right after college, and so I was looking at relationships between continental Africans and African Americans, and a lot of that sort of became the ground for my second novel, Dream Country. So, which is about 5 generations of a Liberian and Liberian American family. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, did you encounter what racial attitudes did you encounter when you went abroad, or if any?
Yeah, so it was interesting. In Bolivia, they have a lot large, like they call it Indio, so native native Bolivian population, but they don't have a lot of black folks. But they're right next to Brazil, which of course Brazil has a ton of black folks.
Right.
And
Right.
so it was like, I would walk through the market and I would hear sometimes, mira, mira, la brasilera, which means like, look, the Brazilian, like they could see that I had black in me, right? And so, and it's like I'm not gonna say anything in response to that, right? Okay, I'm just gonna go buy my mango or whatever. So yeah, and then of course, as you say, every country has every society, every country has its own racial history,
Right.
and social histories, and so definitely being in West Africa, I had in certain instances, people there call me like white woman, or Obruni, which in Ghana means it's white person, but it really means like foreigner, American, these things too. And so that will make you jump out of your skin, right? As a black person, being somewhere and having people yell white woman at you as you walk down the street, right? And it's like, okay, but they don't have the same history of slavery, right?
Right.
And the one drop rule and all
Right.
that stuff,
Mhm.
right? So to them, I did look white and I was American, right? And I was, so yeah, it was very interesting in a lot of different ways.
I bet. So, what do you want people to gain from reading your book? Like, what
Yeah.
is the main message you want to get? Since it's a memoir
Yes. Yep.
about your life, is
Yep.
it about overcoming? Is it about fitting in? Finding yourself. Discovering yourself, who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and then a path forward, or
Mm-hmm.
just what do you?
Yeah. I mean, I think like I really want readers to contend with, what does it mean when you are a person who has all these holes in your personal and family and health history, um, in a society that really values like full, seamless narratives, right? What do you do? Right? How do you go forward and try to create um, a whole sense of self, um, when you don't know um, what your name was at birth, when you don't know, if there's like in my case, there's history of breast cancer on my birth mother's side, and I was lucky enough that she told me that when in my early 20s, so that when I did develop it 4 years ago, they caught it very early, and I was able to get, good treatment and everything. And And just also, I think, with the speculative elements too, kind of the power of storytelling, you know, that storytelling can help people who maybe have these ruptures in their stories and their identities create at least a semi-coherent sense of self. Yeah. Yeah. And I also hope the book is just fun for people too, you know? Yeah.
Okay. Now it's for your birth mother, you said you met her, or
Yes.
when you were
Yep.
an adult. Did you meet her when you were an adult?
Yeah. When I was 19, I met her.
Did you
And
track
then we
her
had a
down,
kind of,
or did you already have the information? Were you having to track her down, or
yep.
did your mother
Yep.
give your adopted mother give you the information?
So yeah, so once you're 18 and no longer a child in the eyes of the state, you can, you know, approach your adoption agency and, you know, get whatever information that they're allowed to give you, or that they have. And so I put my name on something called the Central Registry, and so did my birth mother. And what that is it's just like a place where they will match birth parents with adoptees. And so there was a match, and so I was really lucky with that. And, you know, I have friends who are international adoptees, Korean adoptees, for example, that it's just like they can't find anything, nothing, which is heartbreaking. And so, yeah, so I found out information about her. I found out my name at birth, and I, you know, started talking to her on the phone. We started writing each other, eventually met each other, and kind of had this complicated on again, off again relationship over many years, and until her death from cancer about 9 years ago.
Oh, so she passed away from cancer.
She passed away. And I also found out in my birth search that my birth father, who was African American, died when I was 6. Yeah. Yep.
Boy. So did your birth mother, did she, or did you ask her why she decided to give you up for adoption?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of the reasons that you hear birth mothers, you know, give for relinquishing their children, that, you know, she didn't feel like she was in a position to raise a child. She didn't feel like she had the support. She didn't feel like she was in the correct sort of mental, emotional, psychological space to do that. And she just felt like giving me up would be the best thing for me. Yeah.
Okay, so your relationship with your adopted family is ongoing, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And
ongoing
it's been, you know, like all families, you know, there's been stuff, and, you know, they weren't super happy when I decided to do my search and reunion. But they have come a long way, you know. Yeah, it's been a journey for everybody, for sure.
Yeah, everybody wants to know where they came from. I mean, I guess I will say most people know who their parents are or were or whatever. They, you know, they grow up with their parents, so they don't have to question. But now with a lot of children not living with their fathers, that relationship now is one that people are trying to work on reviving, reuniting, having some kind of relationship other than anger and disappointment, you know. So families are complicated, and it's not always a seamless situation. Even when you grow up with your birth parents, it's still, there's, you know, in my case, my personal case, I don't think I've ever shared this on the show. I have a sibling that I didn't grow up with, that I didn't even know existed until I was a grown woman. And so it happened before my parents were married, and I didn't even know she, you know, we haven't had a sister. And as it turned out, it's my father's daughter that he had when he was a teenager. but he maintained a relationship with her. We didn't even know she existed. And when we did meet her, it was just odd because she looks exactly like our grandmother,
Oh my
my
gosh.
father's mother, which
Oh my
none of us looked like. But she is the spitting image of our grandmother. I mean, it's just it's really amazing. She's a carbon copy almost.
Wow.
That was so it couldn't be denied. But our father didn't. My dad was a pastor, and so, and I don't know why it would be maybe because of the times it was controversial, but it didn't happen when my parents were married. It happened before they got married. So, several years before, because I think there's like 3 years between her and my sister, who's 3 years older than me. So it may be more, maybe 4 years. But anyway, it happened before. But it still was until my dad passed away 2 years ago. The people at church didn't know about her. So she was at the funeral. It's she was the first person, because it's in the birth order.
Yeah.
And that was their first time seeing her. And and he was 89 when he passed.
Oh
So there's always every family that to say
right. No, totally.
has
Yes.
stuff. But I guess in my case, since I grew up with both my parents, there was a blessing, I'll say, because in talking with my half sister, I guess she would be, she didn't grow up with my dad. So it was like she missed out. She always felt like she missed out on so much because of that. And so
Yeah.
every family had stuff. So if you were going to advise someone about interracial adoption, what are your thoughts about it? In general?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of times adoption is the way that it's practiced right now is to find a to find a to find a child for parents rather than to find parents for the child, and that's problematic. Just I think people really to think deeply about what their motivations are for adopting, and then kind of also, for white folks in particular who are adopting transracially, and the way that that's practiced historically and now is usually, white folks, folks who are of higher class, higher income, adopting kids of color. Usually the birth parents are of lower socioeconomic class than the adopting parents. All these things, and so if you are white and you're adopting a Native child, a Black child, a Latinx child, etc., think about, do you have people from that child's racial, cultural background in your life now? Where do you live? I have some friends who are Korean adoptees who grew up in towns in northern Minnesota where they were literally the only Asian person within 100 miles, and of course, you can imagine, they were called all kinds of names, on the playground by the white kids. And then, some of my friends went home and told their white mothers about this, and their first response was to start crying, which was not helpful. And also the last thing I would say is, the narratives on adoption, which this book is also about, the dominant narratives on adoption, are in this country are all about, you gain this other family, you usually, it's like, you have better access to better education and certainly better material resources. And that's all true, usually, but, or if you're lucky, I guess. But it's also a loss, it's also a loss of first family, loss of connection with birth mom, birth father, all of those things. And so it's a both and that needs to be acknowledged as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to say that the person gains from a socioeconomic standpoint is moot, because they don't know that, because they didn't live the other,
Right.
they weren't living a different way before. So they
Yeah.
don't see a gain because it's just normal.
Yeah.
If you understand what I'm saying,
I do know what you're,
whatever they were raised in, that's normal. It's kind of like, you know, for me, I was raised very middle class, but you know, I hear about people who were in the project, born, you know, raised in the projects, so very poor, but that's not my reality. So I can't say I know how that, what that experience is, other than talking to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm, you know, I'm grateful that, you know, I've never missed a meal. And any really, the only time I came close to missing a meal, it was after I left home. It wasn't at home. It's when I was on my own trying to figure out life, you know. But that's interesting that you said that. One thing that I've noticed about, now I'll just be frank, my daughter went to a private school, private Christian school when she was in middle school, and it was, you know, it was like 97% white. So one of the white families adopted a Black child from, you know, she was African. She might have been from Nigeria. I'm not sure where she was from, but I think the child was maybe 3 when they adopted her. Well, and one clue to what happens is the hair
yeah,
doesn't get
that's always a
toned.
tell. That'll tell you everything.
Styled. It doesn't get oiled.
Yeah.
It doesn't get attention. You can tell.
Yeah.
And I just wondered when I saw that child, I said, how are they going to? And I think it's harder for girls. I think boys probably, I don't know. It's so many things.
It's hard for boys in a different way because they have to deal, because I know some Black male transracial adoptees, and they have to deal with like the masculinity piece, you know, in a different way.
In a different way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I wonder what happened with the child, because I know that she's going to have real challenges fitting in, because and they might be well-meaning. I won't question anybody's motives, but this society is still color-based, cultural-based, and a Black child needs to understand some of the things they're going to be dealing with as they mature. And I just don't think a white family can explain that. I don't know. I don't know. What,
I mean, I think like you
talk to you about race.
I mean, this was my argument with my white adoptive family when in my 20s, was like, okay, you know, my parents would, you know, when they like read to us at night as children or something, it's like they would get, like, I would get the Nikki Giovanni Spin a Soft Black Song, which, you know, is a great book, and I love that, right? But that was the book for Shannon, right? That was the book for me. That wasn't necessarily the book for my brothers, right? They could have the books about, you know, the bears and the frogs and you know, the adventures or whatever it was, right? And so my argument in my 20s to my parents was like, no, the thing is, when you adopted me, you became an interracial family. So then everyone in the family should have been learning about Black stuff, right? Like, and so then, you know, you already should have had some close Black friends, right? And all these things. And so I think that that's a big part of the problem, is that a lot of times, you know, parents expect the kids to lead the way. Like my mom would be like, well, why don't you go play with Theresa, you know, this Black girl in my class. I'm like, I don't want, because I don't want to. Like, you can't make me, right? Like, I don't want, right? Like, it becomes this thing where it's like, but why, right? Like, so you can't expect the child to lead. As a parent, you have to be the one to lead in all ways, right?
Okay.
Including racially, culturally, socially, etc. And white people in this culture are not trained to do that at
No,
all.
they don't even know what it is. So I mean, just, no, I'm you know, and I had my husband's first wife was white. We have a great relationship, but she doesn't have any black friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, I know what
she's
you mean.
white.
Yeah.
So, and I love her. We
Yeah.
have a great relationship. We have holidays together. But that's not her world, if you understand what I'm saying. It's just not.
Well, yeah.
Well, we're at the end of our time, Shannon. This has been a fascinating conversation. And I wanted to tell the audience about your book, The Girl I Am, Was, and Never Will Be. And we're going to give the book away. If you all, whoever, this is a hardcover. This is a real book, not an advanced reading copy. So the trivia, we always do trivia, and name Shannon's sophomore novel, the title of Shannon's sophomore novel. Put it in the comments and you'll get your copy of Shannon Gibney's book. And Shannon, how can people reach you on social media and just online?
Yeah, so my website is just my name, shannongibney.com. And that has, all my information, events, etc.
Okay.
I'm on IG, it's at Shannon Elaine Gibney. I'm on Facebook, it's just Shannon Gibney, and I'm on Twitter at Gibney Shannon. So it's pretty easy to find me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Shannon, this is a fascinating conversation. Thank you for writing your book and just informing the audience. This is the first time we've discussed this, and we've discussed, a lot of different authors with different topics. This is the first one on transracial adoption. So I hope people, got some information they didn't have before.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Have a great evening.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we're going to bring on our last guest. Before we do that, I need to give away these 2 books. And let's see if we have some answers. I think I did see, let me see. Who said Beyonce first? I know it was an easy one, but that was the only thing I could think of. That was, for this book, the answer is Beyonce. And it looks like Janice Kearney won, but I am going to go back through at the end of the show and determine for real. And then let's see, this one, I don't see an answer for this one. So this is by Cynthia Manick, and I don't see anyone who answered that one. So let me scroll up a little bit more and see if okay, so we're going to bring on our last guest. I don't see the answer. If I find it before the end of the show, I will tell who won. So I think this one's for Janice Kearney, but I'm not sure. I'll look it up later on and I will let you all know. So our final guest is Gary McDougall. He is an author, and he also has had a career with NASA. I don't think he was an astronaut, though. I think he was an engineer. He said, right. But here's a book called Don't Tell Me There Ain't No God. And I think this is part memoir, but he has a life history that he experienced a lot of arcs and challenges. But in the end, he still was able to establish a successful career. He's a lead engineer at NASA. And so, Gary, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Well, thank you, Glenn. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, do you have a copy of your book?
I do. Give me a second.
Okay, all right. He's gonna give us a copy. He said he survived a deadly hurricane as a child and many other death-defying moments along the way. So we're gonna have him, when he brings the book so we can see the book, we're gonna have him tell us some of those.
Yeah,
we can see it really well.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So is this your first book, Gary?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
And what led you to put down your story on paper?
That's a very good question. I've had that question asked many, many times. Let's see, the cliff notes of it all was that for most of my adult life, I suffered what is referred to as survivor's guilt. And that basically is, if anyone's heard about survivor's guilt, it's when, something traumatic happens in your life and you almost died, or you were gonna die, you thought you were gonna die, however that goes, but then, or you survive and you don't die. But then in my case, that happened 9 times. So after a while, it's like, whoa, okay, wow. So it weighed heavily on me and I couldn't deal with it. I was just, why did I not die? Why am I alive? How come, that's the question that people have in surrogate. And so interestingly enough, I met a lady. I was coming back from a conference in Vegas. Met a lady at at a hotel, one of those hotels that have breakfast in the morning as part of the hotel, and we just got to talking. And over my life, I've talked about different aspects of my life with people that I meet here and there. But this conversation is a little bit different because as I began to talk about things and talked about some things that happened in my life, the lady said, "Hey, wow, that's not the usual story that people have, and you should consider writing a book." And believe it or not, I haven't really thought about writing a book because, to be honest with you, most of my life, I always thought my life was a normal, a life that, normal life that people go through stuff. And believe me, everybody's got a story. They don't necessarily always get to write it down and put in a book. But you can't get through this life and not go through some stuff.
Right.
Not everybody gets to go. Not everybody goes through all the stuff that I did.
No, not survive a hurricane. Now I've been through some hurricanes, but I wasn't at a threat of life, my life. The worst one we went through, I think, was Ida. And when we went through Ida, you know how they talk about the eye of the hurricane?
Mm-hmm.
We went through that. The eye, it stops. Everything stops.
Mm-hmm.
And the sun comes out. You think it's over. And then the back end of that storm comes through. It's just as bad as the front end. So we were fortunate that we, didn't have any damage to our home other than, a few tiles off the roof. But when you went through the hurricane, which is one of the things you said you survived, how old were you?
That's very, so let me give you a little teeny bit of the backstory.
Okay.
I was just shy of my 8th birthday. So it happened on Halloween night, and I was born in November 16th. So it's about a couple of weeks before my 8th birthday. Okay. And what they say is true. You don't have any memory of the person prior to 4 years old. So my first memory of life was a little boy's kindergarten in Central America. I grew up initially at that age in Belize, Central America. We lived we lived in Belize City, but we lived in a place called Cinderella Town, which is right on the coast of the Caribbean Sea, and it's below sea level. Okay. So that was my first recollection of life. I had no idea that the United States even existed, never mind what it was. We didn't have TV and radio and all that stuff. And so that hurricane, in doing research years later, was at the time the worst hurricane in recorded history in North America in 1961. And when that hurricane came through, it was 200+ mile-an-hour winds and a 25-foot sea surge. And since we were right on the coast, about a mile from the sea, and we were below sea level, when that surge, 25-foot surge came up in there, it was killing everything it could get to. It was really a miracle that my mom, crazy how she did it, but she saved not only me, but her and this other lady, as she calls it, that was there, and 4 of my siblings from drowning. When everybody in our little town were killed, except for us.
Oh boy. And
we actually, my mom saved us, and then what she did, well, I'm not gonna get into all the details, that's what the book's for, right? But essentially, after it was over and we were able to get down to where we could get back onto the ground after the water receded, and we walked our way out until the soldiers came and found us, all we saw was death. That was my first experience of death. Dead animals, dead people, dead. There wasn't nothing living. It was all dead.
Oh, wow.
Because the bodies, you know, they didn't, some floated out to sea, but some of them washed up and they
Right.
stayed around.
Right.
I seen people strapped in still, and I'm not sure I know why they did that per se, strapped to their mattresses. I'm not sure I understood all that, what that was all about, but they were strapped to their mattresses. Like, not sure. And I also saw at one point when we were escaping to try to get over to the church after we decided we needed to get up out of our little, I don't call it a house, called a shack, because that's exactly what it was. But there was tornadoes coming in. I actually, this is before I even saw the Wizard of Oz movie. I actually saw a house flying in the sky with people still in it screaming and hollering. It's a crazy thing for a child to see. But when you're a child, you're not really scared. You don't really, you don't.
Well, you don't really know about death.
It's just happening.
You saw some, but you don't. It's a lot you don't know when you're a kid. That's why,
right.
I people who want children to make decisions that could be life altering, whatever kind it is, children don't know anything.
That's
they
true.
Don't know enough. They don't know what the rest of your life means. They don't know how the finality of death. They don't know they're not going to be the same person at 8 that they'll be at 14. They don't know anything about anything really.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
but
that was the beginning of all of these different and in between all of the death things, of all these times when I've been in situations where either I was about to die and I had to do something to not die, and I've been in situations where I was gonna die and there was nothing I could do about it, and then I didn't die. I mean, it was just all kinds of crazy stuff. And mixed in between all of that is, I spilled my guts in this book. I mean, it's bearing your soul. And the reason ultimately, well, two things. You asked the question initially, and the answer to it was, it gave me the answer I had always been searching for. Why did I survive? Why am I still alive? And the reason that came to me was so I could write this book, to write and give like a testimony to people that, hey, all the things that we can potentially go through in life, and like I said, everybody's going through something, that no matter what you're going through, not everybody's going to go through what I went through, but it's tough on you when you're going through whatever you're going through. But no matter what that is, no matter how bad it may be, that you can get through it, you can survive it, you can get through it, and you can live the American dream. Now I hear people talk about you can't do the American dream, and there's racism and there's all these things, and I'm not arguing that, but hey, I am the first African American. Now this is not what they call that movie, the Hidden Figures thing. That was incredible. That's but I'm the first, and still was the only African American to be lead engineer for all security systems for NASA nationwide, ever. And so
that's an amazing accomplishment.
Well, that's what people say, and I agree. I do. I'm proud of it in the sense of that I see where I came from, because I don't think people know my parents were migrants who came. My mom came over the border, and I was born. That's how I became a citizen, because originally I was born in San Diego before we went back to Belize.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I experienced life living in a shack in Belize, and we didn't have running water, and we didn't, we had an outhouse and all that stuff. So I grew up as about as poor as you about gonna be, especially a third world nation. And so I just say that I was able to all that I've gone through from that meager beginnings to achieve where I am. And I say that if I could do it, you can do it. Okay. Simple as that.
Well, determination can take you a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Although I have to talk about, because I think I did mention something about the Hollywood movie, and without giving too much away, I do want to mention this because I find this to be very interesting. I think people will. So I had gotten to a point where, well, I'll put it this way. Hal Lindsey wrote a quote one time that I've always remembered, always kept near and dear to me. And he said that a human being can live approximately about 40 days without food, about 10 days without water, about 4 minutes without oxygen or air, right? If you're not breathing for 4 minutes, you're going to be brain dead at a minimum, trust me. But only a second without hope. When you lose hope, then that's when you check out, because at that point, there's no hope that tomorrow will ever be a better day. None. That's it. You're done. So I was there.
So you were at the point of no hope, or the point of endless hope.
Well, let me just put it bluntly. I was about to commit suicide.
Okay.
Make it
Now,
blunt.
how old were you when this point?
That was in
life?
that was in the summer of 1976. So I was about 25.
Okay.
Roughly. Yeah, that sounds about right with the math in my head. And so this was the catalyst that changed it. When I say the catalyst, this was the physical mechanism that changed my whole life. But I believe that it was, and hence the title of the book. Might as well talk about that. The title of the book is called Don't Tell Me There Ain't No God. The reason is not because it's necessarily really a religious book or a spiritual book, but because after all that I'd been through and all the times where I was saved from certain death and all this stuff, I say, well, don't tell me there ain't no God, because my life says otherwise. Simple as that. Yeah. I mean, the things that have happened to me, to me, only a God could have made it so that I didn't die in those cases. But the movie was interesting. There was a movie, I watch it every year at Christmas time, called It's a Wonderful Life.
I've seen it many times.
And in there, I see it, I don't know, 30 times.
It's a great film.
Absolutely. And there's a moment in there where he cries out.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's when I cried out.
Okay.
I cried out, and this is a true story. I just looked up. I was alone in my my mom's place late one night, movies to dawn, I guess is what that was. And I cried out, God, to help me, because I was in such despair. That was right after I narrowly escaped death, and I was in the struggle for my life where I was going to die. And I was so down. I was so depressed. I was so all these things. And I was like, I don't want to be here no more, because what's the point? I'm never going to be anything. I'm never going to achieve anything. I can't, I'm useless, and I'm all these things. So, but that changed. And then right after that, almost immediately, my whole life changed. It just changed. And it went forward, and then I began to get into this. I got into this. I was a songwriter. I had a couple of songs on the radio. I was in modeling for a while, but decided I didn't want to pursue that for a variety of reasons. And I just had all these opportunities. And then it was weird how I ended up getting into security, which then led into university law enforcement, which led into this technical thing that I got involved in. And I got into these technical things back in I say maybe the late 80s. And believe me, I went to a convention. This is a true story, in Vegas for like this security systems, I think it was, Industrial Security West in Vegas in 1989. And I was invited by some people in the industry, and I went to an event there in a ballroom, and there was, I don't know how many thousand people in that ballroom, and I was the only African American in that entire ballroom, with the exception of the help. True story. Now it's all different now and changed in the industry. Now there's a lot of African American, male and female, but back then it was just me. Just like I said, if you read my book, most people that read my book, they just shake their head and they go, wow. I mean, some of them will say, well, that's unbelievable. I can't even believe that anybody could live through all of that. Okay, well, but I did. I'm here, and it's what happened to me, and I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to share it with people. And if I can change one life to give them a positive spin to their life, that they can then use what I went through to say, because I look at and I meet people, I go, I know they've been through stuff, and they go, but I think what happens is they go, well, I don't feel so bad because there's somebody, man, went through more than I did, and so I can do it. You know, inspiration. I can make it. I can get past it, and you can. And I have talked to some people who have said that. I read your book, and it really touched me, and it caused me to look at life a little bit different. And if I could do that for one person, then I'm good.
Okay, so how did you end up at NASA?
All right, so I was working for the University of Southern California. I was I retired from the law enforcement part of it as a lieutenant, and then I stayed on because I was working with their all of their computer systems, and I then became a director of technology. Then I got into security systems and built a security system for the university and built this whole program. And then I left and went to an engineering company. And when I was at this engineering company, the vice president of sales came up to me one day and said, "Hey, how would you like to go work with NASA?" This is when I was living in California. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, wow, that sounds okay. That's a very prestigious organization. Who wouldn't? And then he said, but, and here comes the but you got to move to Huntsville, Alabama. And I said, literally, it's a true story. I said, who? What? I mean, just like that, because the closest I had ever been to Alabama before then in my life was flying over there between New York and LA. And what I heard about Alabama was so I was like, oh, but for whatever reason, I didn't just, I didn't do a Whitney Houston on a hat to the no, whatever. I said, let me get back to you. I'm like, I gotta go think about this. And I went back and I did my research, because engineering, all that stuff, you don't do anything without researching and getting your facts and knowing what's what, right?
Well, yeah,
and
hopefully.
This is what I found out, and it blew my head completely. I was like, my head exploded. And I to this day don't remember what magazine it was. It wasn't in the big ones. It wasn't in Jet. It wasn't in what's the other big Africa, Ebony or one of those. There was some magazine that I found, and it said in there that Huntsville, Alabama was the #1 place for African Americans to live and work in the United States of America. And I was like, what? I was shocked.
Now, I hadn't heard that before.
Neither did I. And so I said,
I've been to Alabama. I don't know if I've ever been to Huntsville.
I came out here, and man, it was like.
So you're still in Huntsville?
Oh, absolutely. And it used to be, sad to say, used to be the best kept secret in America. But then USA Today or whatever magazine went and screwed it all up, put it all out there, and made it the #1 city to live and work in America, period. And I was like, oh man. I was not happy, because I was like afraid all these people gonna start coming in, and it's not gonna be, the sort of it's not Mayberry RFD, but it's a very unique place because it's a melting pot. It's not a true Southern town like most people think about it, Montgomery, Birmingham. Mm-hmm. It's a melting pot of people from all over the country. It really is.
Yeah, I've only been through there. Okay, it's Huntsville where, is it Toyota? Does Toyota have a plant?
Yeah, they got Toyotas out here.
Now I've passed on the interstate. I've passed that Toyota.
Oh, you passed it?
That big Toyota plant, but I've never been to Huntsville. I've been to Selma, Montgomery, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa. I've been there. That was just on a stop on the way somewhere else. But I haven't been to Huntsville. I have been to Belize though once on a cruise.
Have you?
On
what
a cruise.
Year, though? What year? 90s or 2000?
No. 2000.
Okay.
Maybe 2010, maybe 2009, somewhere in there.
Did you go to one of the Keys, or you stayed in Belize City?
No, the cruise ship, you get off the
Oh, you on
you
a
get
cruise
off the
ship. Okay.
ship, you
I got you.
go, you get some t-shirts and other souvenirs. You'd go, we went down to the shore, as I recall, and met some of the fishermen. It's a lot of fishing among the
Oh, yeah,
natives.
fishing,
So we met
lobsters.
the
Woo.
native fishermen,
Yeah.
and that was, my husband always liked to mingle with the natives whenever he goes somewhere. So, but you only get a few hours off the boat, and then you get back on the
Right.
boat, and then you go to the next
Right.
place. But I have set foot in Belize. So
Oh, good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So do you go back there often?
Last time I was back there, I believe it was, after the hurricane in 61, I hadn't been back since 1996. When the first time back. And then what did the brother author say? Pre-COVID, or however he said it?
Before COVID, BC.
Yeah, just before COVID, I did go. I love that BC, AC. Yeah. And so I did go back there with my sister and my family. I have tons of relatives that are still there, that live there, and we visit some relatives and all that. And so, but yeah, I have been back there. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're in the final couple of minutes. Okay. So can you tell the audience how they can get a copy of your book, Don't Tell Me There Ain't No God, and how they can connect with you if you're on social media or you have a website, or let them know how they can do that.
Okay. So my book is available on Amazon, of course. Barnes and Nobles. It wouldn't be in the bookshop per se, but you can go online and get it Barnes and Noble, and there are a lot of online places that have discounts all out there. Just put the title in Google and let it fly. But Amazon's basically saying, because if you're a Prime, then you don't have to worry about shipping, and they always got the print on demand, so you're going to get your book boom pretty quick. No fuss, no mud. They also have what do they call that? The
Kindle?
Yeah, there's a Kindle if you want to. And I have been asked, and I am seriously considering I've been looking into to do an audiobook. A lot of people have said they would like for me the audiobook and me narrate it myself, and they can listen to the car. So I'm looking into that. But I say if you want to connect with me, the best way is to go to my website, because I do have my own publishing company, my own imprint. And that's Kengar Publishing. And so the website is Kengar, K-E-N, Gar, G-A-R. It's a combination of my wife's name and my name. Kengar Publishing, one word, KengarPublishing.com. I also have resources up there for people who want to self-publish, because I do believe in trying to give back, and I want to help other people who are looking to publish. And so I do have some resources up there. There's a link up there that has resources of things to look into if you want to, you're considering publishing your own book, self-publishing, and those kinds of things. So, and then I'm also looking at YouTube. I'm going to be doing a YouTube channel here probably, but all that stuff is going to be announced on my website. So go there. Subscribe, put in your info. I don't spam people, and I don't sell email. You ain't gonna get a whole lot of email from me, but if you'll get something when there's something you should consider.
Okay, well, Gary, thank you. You have an amazing story, and I hope people go out and get a copy of Don't Tell Me There Ain't No God.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so everyone, that is our show for this week. And before we go, I want to see if anyone won the books. I think Janice Kearney won the book by Matthew Knowles. Some of you all were trying to get the book by Shannon Gibney, but I didn't see anybody who had the right answer. The answer is not See No Color. That's not her sophomore novel. It's the sophomore novel that you're supposed to. So if you do it after the show, I'll still count it as a win, and you'll get a copy of the book. So anyway, that's it for this week. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for this week. And we'll have an amazing show next Tuesday on Black Authors Matter TV. Be blessed.
Thank you for tuning in and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.